Imagine a man standing at the edge of civilization, staring into the vast silence of the mountains. Behind him lies the noise of the world, the chatter of crowds, the demands of society, the endless hum of obligations. Before him stretches only stillness. He takes a step forward, not because he despises life, but because he yearns to truly live it. This is the timeless image of the hermit. Throughout history, the hermit has appeared in myths, religions, and philosophies as a figure of mystery and power. He withdraws, not to hide, but to discover. He abandons the familiar, not out of weakness, but out of the deepest strength. In the silence of solitude, he confronts truths that the crowd cannot bear to see. His lamp illuminates not the path of others at first, but the shadows within himself. In our modern world, solitude feels almost impossible. Every moment is interrupted by screens, by alerts, by voices pulling us outward. We fear silence because in silence the mind speaks too loudly. We resist being alone because alone we encounter who we truly are. Yet, paradoxically, it is precisely in solitude that the seeds of true growth are planted. The great minds of history understood this. Philosophers like Nietzsche, mystics in their deserts, monks in monasteries, poets in their cabins, all withdrew from the world at times, not to abandon humanity, but to rediscover it from a higher vantage point. Solitude was their crucible, their place of transformation. The hermit's wisdom is not about isolation for its own sake. It is about the courage to step away from the collective noise and face the uncomfortable truths hidden within the self. It is about embracing solitude as a necessary stage of growth, the passage through which wisdom, creativity, and clarity are born. The question is, do we have the courage to follow him? In Jungian psychology, the hermit is not just a character. He is an archetype, a universal image buried deep in the collective unconscious. He represents the seeker who retreats from the world in order to find something greater than the world. Unlike the hero who charges into battle or the lover who immerses himself in passion, the hermit turns inward. He is the figure who vanishes into the wilderness, carrying nothing but a lantern, a symbol of the light that must be kindled within before it can be shared with others. This archetype emerges in countless traditions. In the tarot, the Hermit card shows a solitary figure standing on a mountain peak, holding a glowing lantern that illuminates only a few steps ahead. His wisdom does not come from worldly conquest, but from patient withdrawal. In Christianity, we see the Desert Fathers, men who left behind cities and empires to dwell in caves, where silence was their teacher and temptation their constant adversary. In Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama abandoned his royal life and meditated beneath the Bodhi tree in solitude before he emerged as the Buddha. Even in literature, from Thoreau's cabin at Walden Pond to Dostoevsky's Exiles, the hermit appears as a figure who transcends society by leaving it. But what is it about solitude that makes it so powerful? Why does stepping away from the world ignite transformation? The answer lies in what solitude strips away. In the presence of others, we are constantly performing. We wear masks, shape-shifting to fit expectations, seeking approval and fearing judgment. But in solitude, there is no one left to deceive. The masks fall away, and we are forced to confront the raw essence of who we are. This confrontation can be terrifying, but it is also liberating. Carl Jung saw this as a vital stage of individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole. The hermit embodies this stage. He leaves behind the distractions of the crowd to journey inward into the shadowy corridors of the psyche. In solitude, the unconscious rises to the surface, and hidden truths demand recognition. What we avoid in the noise of the world becomes unavoidable in silence. Modern research, though clothed in scientific language, points to the same truth. Studies on silence and reflection show that the brain enters different patterns of activity in solitude, allowing for deeper processing, creativity, and clarity. Time alone literally rewires the mind, strengthening connections that constant stimulation would otherwise smother. The hermit, then, is not a relic of ancient mysticism, but a living archetype. He appears every time a person decides to step away from distraction, every time someone dares to listen to the voice within. His lantern is the light of awareness, guiding us not to escape life, but to encounter it more truthfully. Yet the path of the hermit is not a gentle one. Once solitude strips away the masks, we are left with something far more daunting, the unvarnished truth of ourselves. That is where the real struggle begins. When the world grows quiet and the masks of society fall away, what remains is often unsettling. Solitude does not simply offer peace, it forces confrontation. Without the distractions of noise, we come face to face with the one person we spend our entire lives avoiding, ourselves. This is why solitude terrifies so many. In silence, the inner voices we bury begin to speak. Regrets resurface, fears grow louder. The shadow, all the thoughts, impulses, and memories we deny, emerges from the depths. The hermit's cave is not just a physical place, it is the inner wilderness where one's own demons dwell. To enter it is to risk being consumed. And yet, it is precisely this confrontation that transforms us. Jung understood that the shadow must be faced, not denied. To become whole, a person must acknowledge the darkness within, as well as the light. Solitude forces this reckoning. There is no audience to impress, no applause to drown out the whispers of inadequacy, no constant stream of information to keep us numb. There is only the raw, unfiltered self, and the uncomfortable realization of how little we truly know ourselves. History is filled with figures who endured this crucible. Dostoevsky, exiled to Siberia, spoke of how solitude shattered his illusions and revealed the depths of human suffering and resilience. Nietzsche spent years wandering alone in the Swiss Alps, where the silence carved the insights that would shape his philosophy. Monks and ascetics across traditions intentionally sought isolation, not as escape, but as a deliberate descent into the unknown chambers of the soul. True solitude is not restful in the beginning. It is a mirror, reflecting every flaw and every hidden longing. The first stage often feels like disintegration, as though the identity we cling to is crumbling. But within this breaking lies the possibility of rebirth. What dies in solitude is the false self, the persona shaped by external expectations. What emerges is something authentic, though fragile at first, like a flame flickering in the dark. Growth requires this painful passage. To know who we are, but far, we must endure the silence that reveals. The hermit's path is not lined with comfort. It is a path of stripping away, of burning illusions, of facing inner chaos until clarity, slowly, painfully, begins to form. And when it does, solitude ceases to be a prison. It becomes a gift. Once the initial confrontation has passed, solitude reveals itself as something far richer than silence. What at first feels like exile slowly becomes liberation. In solitude, the constant tug of external validation dissolves. No one is watching. No one is judging. No one is demanding that you be anything other than what you are. In that freedom, a new space opens, a space where the mind can wander without fear, and the soul can finally breathe. This is the gift of solitude. It returns us to ourselves. In the absence of distraction, our inner voice grows clearer. Insights that were once drowned out by noise rise to the surface like hidden treasures. The imagination awakens, creativity flourishes, and the tangled knots of thought begin to unravel. Great works of philosophy, art, and literature often trace their origins back to periods of solitude. It is no coincidence that prophets descend from the desert with revelations, or that poets craft their finest lines in quiet seclusion. But solitude is not only for visionaries and sages. It is a necessity for anyone seeking clarity. The modern world assaults us with information, opinions, and endless noise, leaving little room for reflection. To be alone, even briefly, is to reclaim sovereignty over one's mind. It is to cultivate the capacity to think deeply rather than react shallowly. In solitude, we become capable of asking questions that society cannot answer for us. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly value? What path is mine to walk? It is important to distinguish solitude from loneliness. Loneliness is a hunger, a painful sense of lack that comes from disconnection. Solitude, by contrast, is fullness, the state of being complete within oneself, even when alone. Where loneliness diminishes, solitude enriches. It teaches us that our worth is not dependent on the presence or approval of others. Practiced intentionally, solitude becomes a rhythm. The hermit does not abandon the world forever. He retreats and returns, again and again, carrying the wisdom he finds in silence. In our own lives, solitude can take many forms. A morning walk without devices, a retreat from social media, an hour spent journaling, or a weekend spent in quiet reflection. These moments, small as they seem, accumulate into something profound. They shape us, fortify us, and remind us of truths easily lost in the chaos of modern living. The gift of solitude is not escape from life, but preparation for it. It equips us with clarity, resilience, and vision. It teaches us that before we can truly give ourselves to the world, we must first discover who we are, apart from it. And once that discovery is made, the hermit's journey takes its final turn, the return. For wisdom is never meant to remain hidden in caves. It is meant to shine like a lantern in the darkness. Bared of the head. The hermit's journey does not end in solitude. Withdrawal is not the final destination, but a passage. The true test of solitude is what one brings back from it. In myths and spiritual traditions, the hermit is never lost forever in the wilderness. He returns, lantern in hand, carrying light for those still trapped in darkness. His time alone equips him with clarity, resilience, and insight that can only be forged in silence. This return is essential. Solitude without return becomes stagnation, an endless escape from life. But solitude followed by return transforms both the individual and the community. The hermit emerges not as someone detached from humanity, but as someone more deeply connected to it, precisely because he has first learned to connect with himself. His wisdom is not borrowed, not imposed, but earned through the crucible of facing his own shadow. The paradox of the hermit is that isolation teaches us how to belong. Only after stepping away from the crowd do we learn how to rejoin it authentically. Only after discovering who we are in solitude can we offer ourselves truthfully to others. The lantern the hermit carries is not a beacon of superiority, but a humble reminder that light is found within, and that anyone willing to seek solitude can kindle their own. In our world of constant noise, the hermit's wisdom is more urgent than ever. To retreat is not to abandon life, but to preserve the soul in order to engage with life more fully. The courage to step away, even briefly, can mean the difference between drifting through existence and living with intention. We may not all retreat to mountains or deserts, but each of us can create moments of solitude, pockets of silence, where the self is revealed and strengthened. In those moments, we find not emptiness, but renewal. We emerge with clearer vision, deeper resilience, and a light that the world desperately needs. The Hermit teaches us that growth does not happen in the endless rush of the crowd. It happens in the quiet places, where the soul listens and learns. And when we return not as we were, but as we were meant to be, carrying the lantern of wisdom into a world that has forgotten the power of silence.